So we foiled last time. So now we're going to unfoil. Oh, it's C, not D. Sorry. 3.2 C. Unfoiling is called factoring. Now, we know how to factor this. X squared plus 5x minus 6, right? Two sets of parentheses. What do? Split up the first term. Look at this sign. If this is negative, they are opposite signs. Then we list the factors of 6. 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Which factors of negative 6, so they'll have opposite signs, add up to a positive 5? Negative 1 and a positive 6 add up to 5 in that. So if I had cosine squared of x plus 5 cosine of x minus 6, it is no different. So you split up the cosine. Cosine of x, cosine of x. Signs are opposite, plus and a minus. Factors that add up to 6, add up to, or multiply to be negative 6, add up to 5. Well, that's a negative 1 and a positive 6. Okay? Same stuff as if there's just x's. So don't freak out when you see sines, cosines, cosecants, secants, and tangents and cotangents. We're just still factoring. Now, when you saw problems like this, 2y cubed plus 7y squared plus 3y. If you saw that, besides crying, okay, you have to figure out, what do I do first? What do I do first? Take out a y. And you have 2y squared plus 7y plus 3. Now, if we have a first term coefficient, which we do, we just can't go, well, y and y. So remember doing the AC method. Multiply 2y squared by 3. So take these two times each other. 2y squared times 3 is 6y squared. Now, what are factors of 6y squared that add up to 7y? 1y and 6y add up to 7y. So these would add up to the middle term. So these are the two terms we're going to use. So we're going to go 2y plus y, or actually 2y, we don't want we just want 6 and 1 and 6. So 2y plus 1 and 2y plus 6. Okay, we write the two factors down. Then we divide by the greatest common factor of each. We got a 1 and a 2 there, right? So it's y times 2y plus 1 times y plus 3. If you FOIL this, 2y times y is 2y squared. Outers is 6y. Inners is 1y. Those add up to 7y. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay? And then if you multiply the y through, you get that. So, how would we do this? 4 cosine squared of x minus 8 cosine of x minus 5. Well, there's nothing. It's not cosine cubed. They don't have a cosine, so we don't have to factor anything out. But you take 4 times 5 is 20. Factors, and it's 4 times negative 5, which is really negative 20, actually. So factors of 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5, right? Which of these would make a negative 8? 2 and a negative 10, right? So it's 4 cosine of x plus 2 and 4 cosine of x minus 10. So divide this one by 2. Divide this one by 2. So you get 2 cosine of x plus 1 and 2 cosine of x minus 5. We FOIL this. 2 cosine times 2 cosine is 4 cosine squared. Outers is negative 10 cosine of x. Inners is plus 2 cosine of x. Negative 10 plus 2 is negative 8. 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. Okay? So to check your answers for factoring, you just FOIL them again, just to see. Okay? That's not that hard, right? Okay, let's remember our other factoring principles. Let's say we had tangent squared of x minus cosecant squared of x. How does that factor? Well, that's difference of squares. What's the square root of tangent squared? Tangent of x. Difference of squares, what makes a negative? Well, we need a positive and a negative. What's the square root of cosecant squared? Cosecant of x. This is difference of squares. Difference of squares is conjugates. Okay? You get conjugates when you do difference of squares. Now, if this looks like we have to do the AC method, right? And you could use the AC method if you wanted. But if your first term has a square root and your last term has a square root, it's probably a perfect square trinomial. How do we do perfect square trinomials? Well, it's the square root of this, which is 3 tangent of x. This sine plus, and I was right at the start. Dang it, it was a 12. And then the square root of that, which is 2. Quantity squared. So a perfect square trinomial will have this have a square root and this have a square root. So you put one set of parentheses, quantity squared, and you just take the square root of this sine, and the square root of this. That's all you do. To factor this one, I should look and see if there's anything I could take out first. Anything I can take out? Once I take my cotangent of x out, it makes life a lot simpler. Sine squared of x. What's the square root of sine squared of x? Sine of x, sine of x. Sines are opposite. Factors of 3 are 1 and 3. So which one goes here? -3 plus 1. Factoring. Were you doing a gravity test there, Mr. Downs, or what? Okay. All right, when you have 4 terms, group the first 2 and the last 2. What can factor out of the first 2? Sine of x. And we get 4 cosine of x plus 1. What can come out of the last 2? Nothing, so it's a 1 to get 4 cosine of x plus 1. So, when you have 4 terms, this stuff goes in the first set of parentheses, sine of x plus 1. What matches goes in the second set of parentheses, 4 cosine of x plus 1. And if you would FOIL this, you'd get this. Do not put a quantity squared because, well, there's 2 of them, so we've got to put quantity squared. No, they're being added. So we wouldn't get a quantity squared because if you FOIL this, it goes to the top there. Do one more with 4 in it. Yes. Because I factored out a 1 from here, so I know that there's a 1 that goes right there. Again, 4 terms. But before we group them, I need to go where there's positive signs. I'm going to go plus and negative. Because in between the 2 groups, there has to be a plus sign. So anywhere there's minus signs, anywhere where we started with a minus sign, I go plus and negative because there has to be a plus sign right here, or else you'll probably make a sign error. What comes out of the first 2? Sine of x. And we get 6 sine of x plus 1. What comes out of the last 2? Not just cosine of x, but negative cosine of x. And we get 6 sine of x plus 1. See how these match? That's what we need them to match, or you can't factor them. So your parentheses are sine of x minus cosine of x, this and this, times 6 sine of x minus 1, plus 1. Okay? Factoring. This section will help you remember some of your factoring rules. Page 172, 23 through 36, all of them. That way you have something to do in Monday's study hall and you're not sitting like a bump on a log.
We don't have study hall Monday.
Oh, we don't have study hall Monday, so I guess you better work hard the next few minutes in here. Veterans Day program. So on Monday, second period is right at the start of the day. So 2A is first on Monday. And then study hall is kind of wrapped around the assembly a little bit. So you don't have much of a study hall.